Welcome to Meta Tripping, y'all. Y'all, these downloads are affirming everything that's been said since 2016, that's been said directly to me from the angelic world, the spirit world, and beyond. We're working on this together, and that should be evident to those of y'all who are really doing the work on this. I mean, technically, we're all kind of doing the work, but there are some that are navigating the way. And I give thanks for all of those who have been in the trenches of this thing, who have received all sorts of negativity, unjust negativity because people felt like popping off on somebody, and those of y'all who were able to hold it and transmute that energy into that segment radiance that we were told was coming this year. It was going to come a little bit earlier, but some trickery, some things happened. You know, we make adjustments on a meta level and beyond. And one of the reasons I wanted to record, or was told to record, just a moment, let me turn this down a little bit more. And don't you forget it, don't you forget your way home. Y'all, I'm saying, so all kinds of interesting things have happened in this process. There have been movies that have been telling different stories. Some of it, attempts at predictive programming, but regardless of the attempts of corruption to try to turn the wave in a direction that it doesn't need to go in, those attempts have their own way of still working for the way things are going. Especially when we're talking about changing cycles, changing eras. In order to find out who's who, as people are coming up, accelerating, in order to find out who's who, tests are designed. And these tests are tailor-made to each and every one of us and our backstories, which is why, maybe it sounded silly to some people. But bottom line, everything the Spirit was talking about, I'm seeing now how it's connecting and playing out on a world level and beyond this world several times over. You know what I'm saying? At least. When we were told to look at our own stories, and there was a warning to those who are trying to hijack other stories, because you gotta be careful with that mess. You know what I'm saying? Whomever might be listening, who's on that tip to go and kind of jack somebody else's thing and then not even credit them. Because if someone's coming through to bring something to you, especially if they've influenced a number of heads, you know what I'm saying? And, they've been on some master teacher steeds, they deserve their due respect, continuing on. You know what I'm saying? And that goes for everybody who's got, a little something to say. Oh, I heard this from so-and-so. And then if you want to build on it, you build on it. The problem with trying to hijack somebody else's thing is it's a self-rejection. So the gifts that were for you, those are not in your hand. And when the person something's being jacked from takes their stuff back, you might be feeling a bit of imbalance, or more than, a little imbalance as a result in the attempt to try to find yourself again. So it's, that's just a message for, I'm not even sure if anyone will happen onto this channel who's of that caliber. But, it needed to be said, because we're now moving into a point in this thing where, from what Spirit was saying, those who, they were about, Spirit was saying, because I was in a conversation with a beloved sister, the people who were chosen for this thing, really, and, when I say chosen, I haven't been comfortable with that word if you've been listening to the channel for a while, but the people who were, chosen, selected, whatever, floats your ether boat, um, that was, several years ago. 3 years ago is really what Spirit's telling me. Those were the final selections were made. About half of the people succeeded in what their missions were. What we're doing now for the next 2 years, at least, is we're giving that faction, if you will, that had trouble succeeding, a chance to get it right this time. And that's coming from Spirit. So, I mean, most of the things I'm telling y'all are coming from Spirit, or it'll just be like an empathic, sense of something. But y'all, I mean, I've been having memories pop in my head that connect with something that's on the TV, that connect with the time and what that numerological meaning is. And that numerological meaning will be, you know what I'm saying? Like someone calls me and it's the last digits of the, you understand what I'm saying? And that's like, I'm being very illustrative, but it's real like that. And then when I stop to think about something I'm upset about at that moment, there might be a relative, you know what I'm saying, or an ancestor who it's connected to, or someone in my life who's experiencing something that's connected to the story in some way of that relative or ancestor. You know what I'm saying? So look, we're all working on this thing together. I had a communication I can't really explain yet. I don't know if I would. I think like if I even began to try, there'd be some kind of interference from my own team. Spirit saying I'm correct. There'd be interference from my own team. So I just don't know that it's time yet. But it was so illuminating as to how this whole thing works. It really is a giant test to see where folks go. You know what I'm saying? In the cosmic order of things. This ascension process. And Spirit is saying there have been several in the history of this planet, at least. And it's all for a reason. It affects the worlds beyond. You know what I'm saying? So it's it affects this world, but it affects the worlds beyond. So these are things to really, you know what I'm saying, really think about, because when you get deep into it, it's like you're gonna know what connects, you're gonna know what's right. You're gonna know who came for you to share some light codes that you're supposed to have and would do well to heed the counsel of and move forward and be in that work and that self-acceptance so that you can access like what's yours on a forever level. Never mind some material goods, you know what I'm saying? I mean, really, that's coming up too. So that was just something I wanted to get. Well, Spirit was saying like get on it. Oh, that's right. No, what Spirit was specifically, this is what came out. What I'm saying now is what's come out since the time of okay. Spirit said all right, when it comes like basically because I was in the line of thought for some reason about seership, and it was wherever my mind was at that time. I was putting together different things of kind of how attempts at infiltration were utilized, that I've experienced up close and personal, others that I know. And then I started to think so that must be a faction, you know what I'm saying, that is connected to those types of things. You know what I mean? Where people are violated unjustly, in some ways that you really nobody wants to think about. And who, that which has been behind that, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever it is, I began to think, and I was like, so, because of all the interference and whatnot, I was like, so when we're talking about like seership and things of that nature, I'm able to see things in the astral. And then if I'm having a challenge with clarity on what it is, then the Spirit will pop in and be like, that's such and such. And then it's up to me to like really tap into, you know what I'm saying? Like my faith, and what's real, and go with it, because you'll get like this, even if it's not like, well, I say all things pretty much start with, well, this is me saying it, gut feelings, you know what I mean? Well, they start with the head, Spirit is saying, which makes tons and tons of sense and is true. But the gut feeling will let you know Spirit says it's a last ditch attempt to get your attention, right? So it's so important to listen to the gut. So important to listen to the gut. Now, I know empaths can have issues with that area, and it could seem like there's alarms going off all the time, but in doing the self work and the self acceptance work, you'll be able to come back in more into your formation and what you already know, without like feeling shame for, well, spirit's telling you, for your high position. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not one to be throwing certain type of words around, but if I'm channeling, then I'm channeling what's being told to me. Um, so yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, we've seen this movie before. We have seen this movie before. You know what I mean? Where you have the person who's picked on, or they're looked at as corny, or they're looked at, you know what I'm saying? It's just like they're not what's it seems. And they catch all kinds of various degrees of hell until it's time for them to bust out of those shadow projections, and people can get back their shadow projections. You know what I'm saying? As those individuals rise, you know what I mean? Usually it's some kind of empath, or it depends, you know what I'm saying? But I think you have your empath, but you have different kind of functions, that we all have, and our stories are unique, and we're in, like I said, I don't know when I think it was last year, maybe it might have been this summer, I don't know, both are coming to me, it could have been last summer, but those of y'all listen for a while, maybe you'll remember which video, I don't know, but it could be somebody in a cubicle gets activated by listening to a binaurals, you know what I'm saying? By Love Motivos has his glorious binaurals and puts one out, and this person listens to it and something happens. You understand what I'm saying? It's just a process of waking up. Once that process begins to take place, as long as you have self-acceptance, you can coast in this thing. You can coast. So, you want to have self-acceptance. In doing the work, it's good to let go of those grudges, as much as is humanly possible, and take the weight off of someone else who was also just someone else that was popped into the simulation and given scripts. You know what I mean? And even if it is like not even just mere scripts, but it's like hard body opposition, to whatever degree you could find in your divinity to see the divinity in the other person, this is the time for it. The spirit is saying absolutely. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna pause this for a moment. Might even, I don't know. I want to do musical interludes, but you really can't be doing all that on YouTube like you can on like Anchor, which is probably what I'm probably gonna start doing. I don't know. That still hasn't balanced itself out as as to how I'm gonna manage and regulate that. I'm gonna pause for just a second. So the seer thing, you have the seers who can see literally, and then you have the ones who kind of poke and prod the seers to try to get information through their actions. So those are the watchers, I think. Spirit says I'm close. Spirit says we're not giving exacts right now, but you know what I'm saying? And as our thing is coordinated, there's clearly been a coordinated effort towards falsehood and kind of taking away from, what is natural. You know what I'm saying? Like even what is natural as far as like creation, you know what I mean? Bring a child. There's been people like, I found out, props to, well, maybe I should let her tell that story because she told me that story. And I feel like maybe she can share that. So I'll talk to her and maybe she could share that story. Sorry, y'all, but I'm just trying to regulate the best way to be fair, because we're given like a lot of times I feel like we're given channels that are more in line with our work, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like where we're at in the thing. So yeah, I think I'll let that. You know what I'm saying? I'll let her touch on that. But like, we'll say instead, just let me pause for a moment. Yeah, I'm trying. I was still trying to figure out a way to pause this, or not pause this. Pause and receive the best way to say it. Um, I think what it is like you'll have. We all observe. We're all just a moment. We're all observers to some extent. You know what I'm saying? But there's a difference between observers and then ones who will kind of get up in there and stir things up. And that could be considered a very Aquarian thing when necessary. And Spirit is saying that's when we're changing orders, right? So orders of leadership. He said yes, they know what I mean. Okay. Um, so um, it's a whole different ballgame after that. Spirit is saying. So you have kind of that before that can happen, it has to kind of come from the order previously. So the previous order will you know what I'm saying, in whatever way throw shade or straight up violate. And from there it gives just cause to the next order to make corrections to the previous order. So I'm gonna leave you with that because I think that that's a whole bunch to think about, especially in these times of downloads. It's quite something for me to say, and then y'all already got all your downloads and you know what I'm saying, happening. So let that, how that's gonna resonate to you and whatever your light codes are in alignment with that. It's gonna vary and it's gonna be unique because we're all in different places in the cosmos. You know what I'm saying? It's absolutely amazing that we're all in different places in the cosmos because we can come together. You know what I'm saying? And we can really ensure that none of the effery succeeds because it's, we done went through some of the worst of the worst of the worst in varying degrees. And we know how to overcome the corruption. We know how to heal the collective disease, if you will. But we'll get into all that later on. I think maybe I should leave this here. This is such an amazing time. So you see why that segment Radiance Energy, why it was so important not to just be snapping on people, not to be judging people, not to be casting a third eye, like just to be doing your best, because there's so much out there trying to trick people into looking at people sideways. And now that we're in this time, it's like you're going to get to see who people really are, how they show up. You know what I'm saying? And like, hopefully you weren't one of the ones like casting shade. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and it's the same thing for you in your areas where you've been doing right and, you've been building up, like your light codes. It would be silly for someone to, who, like someone who crossed you before as you were trying to build your thing, like they're going to feel silly when they see what you're bringing to the table. So it's, you know what I mean? And that's good because that's humbling. And if they have integrity in their souls, and my goodness, like if they don't have integrity by now, I don't know, like the spirit world knows what to do in terms of how to, the best way to correct that. But, it's just, we've all been getting ego checks. We've all been getting, so that we'll let that junk crumble. We don't need it. And I know that sounds silly to some. But the fact of the matter is the majority of your power is in the next world anyway. At this point, that would like all this stuff we've been doing going up, accelerating, then coming down and calibrating, going up and accelerating, coming down and calibrating, shedding. Like your stuff is in another world already, another plane, Spirit is saying. Well, the next level of stuff we'll be going up to is in another plane, to be specific. My apologies. Spirit said no worries. So that's what's happening when it's like just let it go. And the reason I can say that right now is because like the big tests have happened pretty much. Yeah, Spirit is saying they have. So now it's kind of like just do your best to be kind. I know it can be difficult, especially with people who have been really like hostile with you, especially because believe me, I've had it, and I'm preparing to meet that hostility with kindness today. You know what I'm saying? With at least one or two of them. So, with full intention, you know what I'm saying? of doing so that, they can come up. You know what I mean? And that's the point when people are talking about, like, just let it go. I mean, there's something, my goodness, especially it's something that happened, in the summertime, or it happened last year, the year after that, or, and I'm not talking about like the big things, because the spirit world will take care of that. I'm not talking about the big stuff that requires a court of law necessarily, or beyond, because these courts of law became so corrupt, right? Um, Spirit saying some of them, but yeah. So, um, it is what it is. You know what I mean? The more that we can be utilizing our segment radiance in dignified light and holding ourselves up like the royalty we are, the better. All right, y'all? Like, the better it is for everybody. Everybody that counts, everybody that truly matters. You know what I mean? And notice I said truly, because things can, this world can have a funny way of creating illusions, but the real tests of who's real, it's going to be in their works. It's going to be in what kind of person they are. Those are the real tests. Really think about that one for anyone, who's in disagreement. I would lovingly advise, really think about that, because the answers are right there of why it is right and exact and irrefutable. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are appreciated. I don't know when I'll be back next. These energies are just like, I feel like I'm celebrating all day long now. I dance around the house. I sing around the house. I'm so happy. Well, when I'm not doing a little releasing here and there, but I haven't had to do too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, a little bit yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was kind of heavy, but like then I had other soul group members lift it up. And then I was singing again. And but that's what'll happen, you know what I'm saying? And we transfer our light codes in that time. Show up for each other. Let's show up for each other. Let's act like we know. Let's act like we know the ego is a thief. You know what I'm saying? Let's act like we know that. And let's focus on what's real. It's much easier to do now. That love people are seeking is in the crystalline frequency. I'll just leave that there. All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. You are appreciated. Peace.